Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ron Broomfield. I am the former warden of San Quentin, and I want to welcome all of our distinguished guests today for this very exciting announcement. San Quentin was California's first prison, built in 1852. And today, it will be California's model prison for rehabilitation and restorative justice. San Quentin has been at the forefront of the department's rehabilitative efforts for many, many years. San Quentin's early leadership established programs that at the time were groundbreaking. A prison chaplaincy, education programs, community volunteers. The commitment from the staff and volunteers at San Quentin is unmatched, and the community support we have here is inspiring. Together, we have created a place where second chances and true hope are a reality, where people who are sent to serve sentences are seen as people, and where they are given skills and resources to succeed on the outside. We are with a place where some of the most innovative programming is taking place, including the award-winning San Quentin News, a partnership with Mount Tamalpais College providing in-person college programming, Guiding Rage into Power, a groundbreaking restorative justice program, the world-renowned Ear Hustle podcast, the Last Mile computer coding program, Insight Garden Project, Prison to Employment, just to name a few. These projects are fueled by and succeed on the passion and tireless efforts of the staff and the volunteers that provide these programs. At San Quentin, we believe people can change and they can grow. If given real opportunity and effective tools, people can discover their true potential and transform their lives and become very productive members of our society. This is real public safety. I am humbled to be counted amongst the people who serve the community of San Quentin. I am inspired by those who at one time were incarcerated here and have leveraged the opportunities afforded to them at San Quentin and are doing incredible things in our communities. We have many of them here today, and their presence is a true testament to the power of change. This announcement today is very exciting because it will enhance and scale the efforts we have taken here for many years. And it'll give San Quentin more resources, more programming space, and more support needed to bring true innovation and culture change to our department. I am so excited to be given the opportunity to help lead this effort. Together, we can and will create a community where staff, volunteers, and our incarcerated population work hand in hand to change the way we incarcerate people in California. Finally, I'd like to take an opportunity to thank Secretary McCumber for his unwavering support in ensuring that the environment that our staff and our populations live in is a healthy environment. So thank you, Jeff. Thank you. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Assemblymember Bonta. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Assemblywoman Mia Bonta, and I proudly represent California's 18th district, which includes the people of Oakland, Alameda, and Emeryville. I also have the privilege of serving as the chair of Assembly Budget Subcommittee on Public Safety. It's not every day you come to prison to hear something positive and uplifting, so I want to thank the governor for holding space here today and for this opportunity and for his deep commitment to public safety and to improving outcomes of people who are in prison. To put significance on today, into more context, each year the state spends $14.5 billion on prisons, or about $106,000 to lock up one person. Of that amount, only 3.4% has traditionally been spent towards rehabilitation programs, and if you put it in real dollars, only $73 are spent in programming supported by community-based organizations. So it's clearly time for a significant paradigm shift in the way that we think about incarceration and rehabilitation in our prisons. This week, in the Assembly subcommittee hearing, we had a panel on mostly former incarcerated individuals talking about the importance of programs in helping them transform their lives. One of them praised San Quentin for its ability to deliver on the promised in the highest way with a wide array of programs provided by community-based organizations. Opening prisons to more programming by CBOs not only shifts the culture in the prisons, it helps to forge a connection to the communities that people will return to. And let's be clear, 95% of our people who are in prison will be coming home to us and will be rejoining us as neighbors. Ask yourself, what condition do you want them to rejoin our community? Currently, CBOs are funded at less than half of 1% of the entire CDCR budget, and that is missed opportunity for all of us. I look forward to working with the governor on this, as well as making sure that this particular project here at San Quentin has the ability to fly and have the investment that it needs. The fact that the governor has chosen San Quentin, the prison that was cited as the death row, is also significant. To transform such a place from despair into one of hope and promise is the kind of vision we want to realize. I want to make sure that we treat this as a timely investment. For now, the proposal is $20 million, as I understand it, in San Quentin to create an honor yard as one of a milestone moment, because there are many stakes that we need to put in the ground along the way on our journey towards transformative change in our carceral system. And this year, we get to thank and really appreciate the leadership of Governor Newsom as he continues to lead the way for the nation in thinking about how we do that with this space here. And I certainly look forward to working with him, our legislature, our advocates inside our prisons and outside that are making sure that when our people come home to us, they come home whole, and that they will not be coming back to our carceral system. Thank you. And I get to introduce Assembly Member Phil Ting, our budget chair on the Assembly.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Let me just also thank Governor Newsom for bringing us here today to San Quentin, our oldest facility, and perhaps our most cutting-edge facility. For a long time, for a couple decades, we had this idea that as a state, we could be safer if we put our inmates, our offenders, in the most remote parts of the state. If we could just somehow separate them from their communities, separate them from us, separate them from their loved ones, from their family members, that somehow we would be safer. And what we discovered, and I think San Quentin has proven it, that actually the exact opposite is needed. That we need to be surrounded by community. That it took a community to get folks here, but it takes a community to get people out. And that we need the services. We need the absolute work, whether from the staff, from the guards, from the medical team, but also just look at all the incredible folks who volunteer here every single day and what they bring to the table. And it's so hard to do that when you're in a part of the state where there aren't very many people. There aren't community colleges, there aren't educational institutions, there aren't community-based organizations, there's not community. And so as we really have started to think, what do we need to do differently? Because for so long, we've been doing the same thing and it really hasn't been working as well as it should. This model stands out. This model stands out because of its location. This model stands out because of the commitment of the staff. And this model stands out for the commitment of all the folks who are working here and volunteering here, but all the folks who are in here too. Because the location, being close to family, having that interaction, having that human interaction matters. I've been able to see a number of different facilities up and down this state, and they're all a little bit different. But my thought was they were all built for one thing, which is to keep people away. So if people are kept away, we can't expect a different result when they get released. When they get released on the ground and we don't have reentry for them, we don't have services for them, what level of success can we actually anticipate? So this announcement, this focus, and I really applaud the governor for really his leadership on this particular issue. His leadership on really right-sizing our system, but really his leadership in reimagining our system and saying that we need to have the right services, we need to have the right people, we need to be really treating everyone in the facility as a community so that the facility is not all by itself. It's part of our community. It's part of our California community. It's part of our, in here, it's part of our Marin community. It's part of our Bay Area community. Someplace that we can be proud of. And so I just want to thank the warden. I want to thank all the staff. I want to thank the inmates who are here with us and just thank you for demonstrating what works, what model other places can follow. It's really our job now to make sure those places get the resources, get the help, really get the connection to community that this place has. You've demonstrated what works. Now it's up to us to really make sure that everybody else can start to follow. So with that, let me just thank and welcome my colleague, Assemblymember Damon Connolly. We're in his district, and I know he couldn't be prouder to be here. Assemblymember.
Thank you, Assemblymember Ting. Good morning, everyone. Proud to represent Marin and Sonoma counties in the State Assembly, including right here at San Quentin. And I particularly want to thank Governor Newsom for really bringing this vision forward. I couldn't be more proud about what today signifies. And before I got elected to the State Assembly, I was a local county supervisor here and spent a lot of time behind these walls, getting to know the people who are incarcerated, the thousands of volunteers who spend time on the programs we're going to be hearing about today, the dedicated staff. And invariably, I was not only impressed with what's happening here, but truly inspired. I want to give a huge shout out to the San Quentin News, Juan and the team. Let's give it up. Mount Tamalpais College, the only accredited college within the entire prison system in California, giving people an opportunity to improve their lives. Marin Shakespeare is here and making a difference in many of the other programs that the warden mentioned. While this institution was once synonymous with inhumanity, San Quentin's administration, our local volunteers, and the inmates willing to open themselves up to transformation have created an environment of healing and success. This hope continues to persevere despite the difficult reality facing many prisoners upon their release, as we know. The truth is, in our system as things stand, most people released from prison are likely to end up back behind bars. Today, I'm proud to join our governor and my legislative colleagues to say that this will no longer be California's reality. We must do better, and we will. Governor Newsom's vision for implementing the California model will be a fundamental shift in how we approach rehabilitation, and as California at its best does, will lead the nation in this regard. Not only is it the right thing to do, but it's sound public policy for our state. I look forward to working with my colleagues and the new working group on ensuring this project's success. Again, thank you, Governor Newsom, for your leadership, and to everyone in attendance today supporting the California model. And with that, I'll conclude by introducing Senator Mike McGuire as the next speaker. Thank you, everyone.
Good morning. Thank you all for allowing me to be here with you today. I think in life, it's tough to admit when you're wrong. And in government, it's even harder. How many times have we seen our political leaders in this state or throughout the nation double down on antiquated policies or bad decisions because it scores political points or shields them from political vulnerabilities? Not this governor, though. For far too long in California and throughout this nation, we have put politics above smart policy when it comes to our criminal justice system. And that is why today is such a landmark moment, not just for us in the Golden State, but throughout America. It's where we put politics aside, and smart policy is now being advanced by this governor, which will help thousands of Californians for generations to come. Here are the hard truths. According to the Department of Corrections, two-thirds of people incarcerated in this state will return to prison in 3 years. We know that black men are imprisoned 6 times the higher rate than white men. And Latino men make up 44% of California's prison population. That is simply unacceptable. This system we have now, simply locking a person up, it doesn't work. We know we know that we can do better, which is why Governor Newsom is leading the way. Today's action by Mr. Newsom isn't just about reform, it's about changing lives. It's about ending the prison pipeline that's impacted California's communities of color. It's about creating a pathway, a brighter pathway for entire families and a stronger future for this state. And it's about saving taxpayers money. In the short term, we know this is going to save this taxpayer funds, and in the long term, tens of millions of dollars. Look, I'm going to end it right here. This decision by Governor Newsom today puts people before politics. All the data shows that mass incarceration, it devastates families in our communities. And today's transformation is a bold step forward that will provide countless Californians the tools they need to thrive as they reenter society and ultimately save the taxpayers of this state millions of dollars. And I call that a win-win for a stronger California. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to be able to have Mr. Melendez in front of us today. He is program director with Smart Justice, and I want to be honest, we wouldn't be here today without Mr. Melendez, his advocacy and leadership. He's a former resident in San Quentin. If we can please give him a round of applause and a warm welcome.
All right. Good morning. I'm Phil Melendez, as he just mentioned, and Director of Special Projects at Smart Justice California. And as a formerly incarcerated person, it is odd, but also kind of funny to say that it is good to be back, especially on a day like this when we're commemorating what I know will be a significant shift in California's approach to incarceration, reentry, and ultimately community safety. When I first arrived here at San Quentin, I had been incarcerated since I was 19 years old. And I spent the first 15 years of my incarceration with no hope of going home. But over the course of time here, I found a new sense of hope. I found healing. I found personal accountability. And obviously, with these new clothes, I found a pathway home. And among people living in incarcerated spaces all over California, San Quentin is already known as a leader of rehabilitative programs. And I benefited greatly from many of them. I hosted a TEDx event. I've took college courses that nourished my mind. I've taken personal growth and accountability classes that healed and fed my soul. These groups helped me look deeply and honestly at the harm that I caused in my community. They also helped me understand my obligations to the outside world. And all of this was in preparation for returning home to my wife and kids, and continuing my work with crime survivors. So to hear that Governor Newsom is taking that type of healing to the next level is a huge deal. In my current role at Smart Justice, I organize visits all across the state and bring people with power and influence in close proximity to mass incarceration. And every time we speak with incarcerated folks, whether it's in Pelican Bay in the northern coast or R.J. Donovan at our southern border, what we hear from the incarcerated folks time and time again is that they want and need programming. And I know this is only the beginning. It's a starting off point for prisons to become places where people can have access, like I did, to job training, college degrees, anger management, restorative justice classes, and in my opinion, most importantly, victims awareness classes. These are the things that will help us gain insight, improve our self-esteem, and set us up for success on the outside. And I know this California model will one day be replicated throughout the state and indeed the rest of the country. So I commend Governor Newsom for recognizing the humanity of the people living inside California's prisons and for his commitment to healing, accountability, rehabilitation, and community safety. And with that, I will conclude and welcome up an amazing person that I've had the pleasure of knowing for a little while, crime survivor, but also an amazing executive director of Californians for Safety and Justice, Ms. Tanish Hollins.
Good morning, everyone. I am extremely humbled and honored to be here and to thank Governor Newsom and help usher in what I think many of us believe to be a transformation of the culture of accountability here in the state of California. It is a moment worth pausing and soaking in, because too many times we are in front of a podium talking about where the systems have failed our communities, have failed victims of crime, and have failed to rehabilitate or interrupt the cycles that we all want to see change. In my work with CSJ, we've worked in strong partnership with elected officials, with community members, with individuals who are directly impacted by the criminal justice system, and those who are victims of crime, to shift priorities to smart strategies that actually address the problem, but help us achieve safety in a very real way. This opportunity that we are standing in front of right now can and will do that, not just here in California, but across the state. And I'm not just saying that from the vantage point of the work that I've led, but also the life that I've lived. Having lost 2 brothers to gun violence, having had multiple members of my immediate family housed here in San Quentin State Prison over decades of time, knowing what it looks like when individuals have an opportunity to access the support, the skills training, the education, to be able to do the deep transformative work of unpacking their own trauma, unpacking and resolving the issues that may have never been addressed, so that they are prepared to come back home, to receive their families and communities, and to be a part of the solutions. I also have countless examples of people in our communities right now who are doing that work. In fact, they are the faces of public safety in our communities. They are the ones that we call instead of 911 when we want to diffuse situations or we want to prevent crime from happening. I see this model as more than that. I see it as a historical pivot in the way that we look at how we create safety. I see it as an opportunity for us to continue to engage victims of crime who may have different vantage points or different opinions about what justice and accountability looks and feels like, but to be a part of building community that receives people who have done the work to rehabilitate their lives and welcome them as full citizens in our community to be a part of the solution so that we don't experience what we've experienced again. I don't know how I got the privilege and honor of introducing our next speaker, but I am far more excited to hear exactly what the California plan looks and feels like. And so I will end my comments here and thank you. And I will introduce someone who needs no introduction, the governor of the state of California, Gavin Newsom.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanish. Thank you, all of you, for taking the time to be here. Thank you. Good to see some familiar faces. And we were just here a couple of weeks ago. And by the way, brother, you touched my heart, man. You said something. Young man who spent the last few years desperate to get to San Quentin, somewhere else in the prison system, lost, and was reading about San Quentin News and was so inspired by the work they were doing. And he finally got here and did everything he could to leverage his way in, just bothering folks up there saying, come on, you got to let me in, let me in, let me in. And you said something that, boy, just, hit home. You said that when you saw that first byline and your name was on it, and you sent it right home to your mom, and you said it was one of the first times she was proud of me. That says something, just this notion of feeling pride, feeling loved, and you did that on your own. And that's a hell of a story. I mean, you think about childhood, you want to go to maybe why we're all here. Either, launches you or breaks you. And so much of our life is sort of working through that and that dynamic. I walked right after talking to you guys and was walking along the fence, and a guy runs up to me and says, hey, Red Table Pizza. I was like, yeah, I remember Red Table Pizza. I grew up in Marin. He goes, no, Joe Wagner Field. I said, wait a second. That was my baseball team in Little League. I was like, who the hell are you? And he goes, man, you don't remember me. We played Little League together. We walked the fence, and the fence, you guys know better than me, I thought that fence was permanent. It ended right there. Just spoke to me at a different level. Still processing that. Two different directions in our lives, just down here in Corte Madera in Marin County, where we played Little League together. Hell of a thing. So we're here soberly and mindful that we are many journeys, many parts, but one body. Bible teaches us that. We were just in the chapel a moment ago. And when one part suffers, we all suffer. Dr. King talked about that. We're all bound together by a web of mutuality. And so in that spirit of reconciliation, recognition, we're here to do more and be better. Not just asking you to do more, those that are incarcerated, and be better, but all of us to do more and be better, to reconcile and to address these stubborn realities. We are as dumb as we want to be. 2/3 of folks, the senator says, coming out of the prison every single year, or at least within 3 years, violate some probation order or commit another damn crime. I mean, 2/3, and we perpetuate that system, and we call that system somehow public safety oriented. Where's the public safety in that? It's exactly as Miyabanta said. This is about asking ourselves the fundamental question, what are the community's needs? How do we serve the community? Knowing that 30,000 people every single year come out of our system. 30,000 through CDCR every single year. 804 of you came out of this system last year just in San Quentin. 50 to 80 people every single month cycling back out into the community. That's reality. And how are people coming back? Are they ready to reintegrate in society? They're ready to be fully participatory in the life of their city and their county, our state and our nation? Or are they bitter? And so for us, this is about real public safety. This is about keeping communities safe. This is about getting serious about addressing the issue of crime and violence in our state, but doing things differently and acknowledging, as was said by many speakers, with humility, that we have failed for too long. And so the question we've been asking ourselves, and you heard the why from many people why we're here. I just added a few thoughts to that. The question now is what and how? we've been mindful over the course of the last number of years, I've had the privilege of being governor for the last 4 years, that we need to do more and better as it relates to rehabilitation. We initiated some programs at Valley State, Salinas Valley. We did some work at Central Valley Women's Facility, where we're doing some really impressive things. We're patting ourselves on the back. I'm grateful for the great leadership and work, but it just didn't feel big enough. We weren't scaling to the degree that I felt we should and could. I've had so many conversations. We were just joking. Phil Ting is not just Assembly Member Ting, he's the budget chair. He's the guy you should be hanging out with. And for 4 years, we've been talking. We've been talking about this reality that we peaked at about 174,000 prisoners in 2006. By the way, in 1976, it was 21,000. When I got out of Redwood High School, it was 50,000. That wasn't the black and white movie days. I'm not that old. 50,000. 174,000 prisoners. Now we're down, plus or minus, depending on the day of the week, a little below 100,000. That's given us an opportunity to think anew and act anew and begin to do things a little bit differently as we decompress a little bit, as we address all those violations we were in terms of federal law and federal receivers and lawsuits and all that stress and travail and going back at each other and all this and just trying to get through the day and muddling through. Now we have a chance to pause, take a deep breath, and reflect. And that's what Valley State, that's what Salinas Valley was about. But again, it didn't feel right. We moved to close DVI, never an easy decision. We announced the closure of Chuckawalla 2025. We're moving away, thank you to the remarkable legislative leaders here, away from private prisons. I mean, the perversity of that, I don't want to get into, though I'm happy to. And we're making progress, but we're not doing justice to the R in CDCR. And so we're here seeing the opportunity present itself at scale. 3,800 folks in this institution alone. I think we've got 546 folks still on condemned row. 101 were transferred in the last year or so. 21 are in Central Valley Women's Facility. How about the opportunity to transform condemned row? But the opportunity, what if we converted death row to an honor yard? What if we took this facility, 81,000 feet, I mean, look at this, and reimagined this and scaled the work, ear hustle, scaled the work that Chris Redlitz and his team are doing at Last Mile, scale the work of all of these remarkable philanthropists, thank you, and volunteers, 500 strong on an annual basis, a core group that come here, the 80 programs that are well established here. We scale them at a whole new level. We asked ourselves the what if question, and it presented anew this opportunity to do something at scale and to do dignity to a lot of the hard work that has been done, not just here, but in other parts of our correctional system. None of this, though, is possible without the staff themselves. I cannot be more grateful that Glenn Staley is here, CCPOA. I'd be more grateful for his willingness to work with us over a very difficult few years and to have an open hand, not a closed fist. Don't get me wrong. We don't agree on everything, and he makes sure that I hear on behalf of his members. But one thing we agree on, we care about the health and wellness of his staff. Isn't it amazing? Roughly 10% of our correctional staff thinks about seriously or has attempted to commit suicide. This system isn't working for anybody. We have got to reconcile that. And the fact that Glenn and his team have gone to Norway, the fact that they've kept an open mind about different strategies is remarkable. And we're honored by that and grateful, because we know there's an old African proverb, you want to go fast, go alone, but you want to go far, you got to go together. And this is the moment to go together so that we can go far and do something transformative. So we are announcing today that process. We've got a co-chair and this remarkable warden who immediately said yes. Not even a hesitation. Goes, I get it, I'm all in. So we said, well, now you're co-chair. Bree Williams, who's interestingly with CDCR staff on the way right now back to Norway of Ament, who is working with us in those other prisons, Valley State and others, on some of the restorative justice efforts that they've initiated. She will be our other co-chair. We're creating an advisory committee of victims and survivors, critical component of this effort. Deep reverence and respect to victims and survivors, to CBOs, to those well-established reentry programs, and to many other experts and leaders across a spectrum and across the United States on an advisory committee. We've requested of the legislature $20 million to begin the design work, to move this process along quickly, and we've created a date with destiny at the end of 2025. We have changed the name of this facility, and we will formalize that as we process the next year and a half or two, where it's San Quentin Rehabilitation. Formally, San Quentin, respecting 1852, respecting what this institution means to a lot of people, keeping the name, but codifying our intent. We have to be in the homecoming business. It's not just about rehabilitation, it's about homecoming. 800 plus people, again, every year, coming out of this institution. You want folks coming back, feeling better, not in the nomenclature of Jesse Jackson, feeling bitter. And so that's the spirit that defines this moment, and that's the spirit that brings us all here together. Let me just close by saying this. I'm not naive about how difficult this is going to be, and don't suggest for a second we think this is just a walk in the park. Nothing that happens within these institutions is easy. Nothing. I mean, my gosh. I imagine just changing, we were talking about the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches here a few years ago. Just changing the jelly here probably took, 10 years. I don't even want to ask. We were just trying to figure out the phone racket around here. That took 4 years for us to help. So look, we're not naive about that, but we are here with a sense of urgency and intentionality, and we're here in partnership with these remarkable legislative leaders. And I couldn't be more proud of them for being willing to put themselves out. I couldn't be more proud of the legislature and the work they've done on public safety in the last few years across the spectrum. And I couldn't be more proud of all of you giving us this opportunity to do something at scale that we hope will be a model for the nation, a model for the world. That's our goal. That's our intention. It's not more complicated than that. We want to be the preeminent restorative justice facility in the world. That's the goal. San Quentin is iconic. San Quentin is known worldwide. If San Quentin can do it, it can be done anywhere else. We say it all the time. Once a mind is stretched, it never goes back to its original form. This is about stretching people's minds about what we're capable of doing and reducing recidivism in this state and reducing the likelihood of someone coming back and not being a full member of society and keeping people safe and making sure that victims feel respected throughout that process. So that's the goal. That's the announcement we're making today. We have a timeline internally, and I'll close on this. That's why I brought all these fancy folks here. You don't even know who these folks are, but you're about to. This is all our agency folks. This is not a CDCR only process. This is the rest of government, departments. This is all of us rowing together. And I think that's what makes this very, very different. We were just in the chapel, in the spirit of, Pastor Brown. We weren't just praying, we were moving our feet, talking about the work that we'll be doing next to begin to integrate more fully the opportunities to support this transformation over the course of the next few years. And so I'm grateful to all of you for being willing to do that, including the fanciest guy here in the red tie, and that's the finance director for the state of California. Remember, it's the fourth largest economy in the world. So Ting has some competition, is my only point, with Joe, who's here as well, and he'll be key to unlocking a lot of this. Forgive me for being so long-winded again. I'm just so grateful to everybody, the spirit that brings us here together. I hope that spirit defines, I hope some little bit of optimism that you may have about this moment. Humility, recognition of how difficult this is going to be and how we'll have some success and failure and setbacks. But I think a lot of eyes are looking at us, and we've got to deliver. And what we're, I think, promoting is transformational, and what we're promoting is fundamentally about public safety. With that, we're happy now to answer any questions.
Hey, Governor. Hi, Governor. Thank you for taking our questions. I'm Dustin Gardner from the San Francisco Chronicle. You mentioned the Scandinavian comparison and wanting to follow that model. A lot of those countries have very liberal policies in the sense of release time. They have programs that allow some incarcerated people to go home to their families on the weekend, for example. Are you willing to go that far? Why or why not?
Well, we have a lot of creative programs that offer a lot of rehabilitative opportunities in this state already. We're not ideological about our approach, and we'll be looking creatively. I'm bringing on a world-class group of advisors here looking at best practices, looking at what works around the rest of the world, what works around the rest of the country. There's some other states that have some novel strategies and approaches, and we're bringing those and those informed strategies to bear. I will say, what we're about fundamentally, this is not just about, reforming, it's about reimagining in this respect. It's about innovation. I don't think we talk enough about innovation in criminal justice. Data-driven innovation. If there's something that separates our game in California from the game played everywhere else, it is innovation. And so I'm for, in answering your question, for what works. And I'm for what is possible within the prism that I operate in, which is not an ideological one, it's a very pragmatic one. And I'm looking forward to pursuing what works at scale.
How you doing, Governor Newsom? My name is Steve Brooks. I'm a San Quentin News reporter and the current editor-in-chief of San Quentin News. We are the most trusted prison newspaper in the country. And we thank you for being here today.
I never heard trusted and news in the same sentence. Well done, man.
But I have a two-part question. San Quentin is already considered the epicenter of rehabilitation in California. Most of what we're concerned about here is about the overcrowding. We're concerned about the living conditions. Yeah. We're concerned about what the Scandinavian model is going to look like as far as dealing with those types of issues. And we're also concerned about violent offenders in California have been the offenders who have been doing the work, who have been going back to society as changed people and as change makers like Phil Melendez. So what we want to know is this Scandinavian model going to all of a sudden say no violent offenders? We want you to tell us a little bit about that.
Just that, no, quite the contrary. And I don't refer to it as a Scandinavian model. This is the California model, the California way, informed by best practice across the globe. The cultural work that's been done in Scandinavia and elsewhere is important, and we're looking to see what we can import from their work, particularly as it relates to the relationships that are formed within the prison walls. But I am probably as familiar, well, probably more familiar than most about the point you made around violent offenders. As someone that reviews, you know it well, suitability, on a weekly basis and reviews every single file individually. I do not outsource it to my staff, and is very mindful of recidivation, broadly defined, and those that have been incarcerated under those circumstances and the delta and distinctions between the two. No, I'm not looking to cherry pick, so to speak, certain offenses. I'm for people that are committed, not passively interested in changing themselves and in turn helping us keep our communities safe and changing our communities as a consequence. That's all we're after.
Hi, Governor Newsom. My name's Aditi Bandlamudi. I'm with KQED News. Two questions for you. I'm curious if the advisory group is going to include people who are currently incarcerated in San Quentin. I'm also curious if some of the existing programs that do exist within the prison today will be part of the rehabilitation model.
Yeah, absolutely. Success leaves clues. We're building off the success of so many wonderful, extraordinary programs here. I noted roughly 80 programs that I'm familiar with. There may be more that I'm not familiar with. Some have been more successful than others. Some are scalable, some are not. And we're mindful of that. The biggest problem here is not imagination or ambition. The biggest problem has been space, and that's why this 81,000 feet is so opportunistic in terms of reprogramming, quite literally redesigning this space, creating more classrooms, creating more opportunity to create more partnerships and support. We're about public-public partnerships, not just public-private. That's why I have state agencies here, and I'll look for local agencies and federal agencies. I want to build more cross-departmental engagement here, respecting the work that the Secretary does as it relates to the rules and regulations within the system itself that are well established and the MOUs that we have established with our workforce. As it relates to, again, building a relationship in terms of design of this reform, we can't do it without having a deep understanding of people that have lived the experience, both on the outside and those still on the inside. So absolutely, to the first part of your question, we will incorporate very formally those views in our efforts and in our reforms.
Hi, Governor Newsom. My name is Samia Kamal. I'm with Cal Matters. Could you talk about the thought process behind putting the funding into one facility and when other facilities might see similar programming in the future?
Yeah, it's and, not or. We have an abundant mindset, not a scarcity mindset. I mentioned Salinas Valley. I mentioned what we're doing in Central Valley, the women's facility. I proudly mention Valley State, having visited, ironically and interesting, with folks from Norway, where we were there. And I want to keep those programs going. And I want to continue to model better best practices in real time and not limit them. But we have a chance to do it in a broader ecosystem here and scale here that can really light up the imagination of what's possible and accelerate those efforts across the system. Again, we want to reduce costs. We want to ultimately reduce incarceration by keeping our communities safe. And we want to make sure that people, when they come out as fully engaged, committed members of our community and society and are contributing and not likely to re-enter into the system at the burden and cost of not only lack of public safety, but public trust as well.
Governor Hannah Wiley with the Los Angeles Times. We're at San Quentin, so a question on the death penalty. You're a staunch opponent of capital punishment and obviously issued a moratorium in 2019, but voters have not had the chance to weigh in on the topic in several years. You have not worked on putting the question back to voters in your governorship. Do you plan to work with the legislature on getting the question before voters again, or using your own ballot measure committee to put the initiative to voters before the end of your term?
Yeah, I'm, as you know, I've stood very firmly in opposition. I think it was almost 4 years ago this week, perhaps. We announced that moratorium. Wasn't universally well received. I met with victims' families. I can assure you, could attest to that. There was a lot of mixed opinions. So I'm deeply mindful of that. I'm also mindful of Prop 66. By the way, Prop 66 gives us the tools and capacity to convert the condemned yard into an honor yard. Interesting fact. I am committed to seeing the abolition of state-sanctioned murder. Beyond me, that many elected officials promote murder in an effort to deter it by somehow saying it's wrong to kill someone by committing that act in a very formalized manner themselves. I find it perverse beyond words. We value life in that respect. And so I hope to continue to process efforts, and we're seeing other states take similar actions that we took. And I don't close the door at any prospects along the lines of your questioning. Governing a state larger than 21 states combined through some very challenging years, means you zig and zag in terms of what you can get done and when you can get it done. I'm looking forward to, recall aside, filling out my term and doing a lot of bold, and I hope what are perceived as courageous things. We'll stay tuned across the spectrum, but on criminal justice, this is one of the things that I'm most enthusiastic about, what we're announcing here today.
So have you met with lawmakers, or have you explored putting your name
I
on a
meet with
ballot
lawmakers
measure
every
to put the
single day.
question?
I've met with author of that of those bills, and at the right time, the right place, where we can get the right conditions, I'm very open to continuing to pursue the effort to end the death penalty, not just in this state, but I want to see it ended around the globe, not just in this country.
Hey, Governor, Jeremy White with Politico. So we've heard a lot from inmates here today, as well as folks up here, about the remarkable array of programming that already exists here, how San Quentin is a model in that respect. So I think what a lot of us are trying to understand is, we've heard a lot of talk about transformation today. What specifically are we talking about? Is it more funding for the things that exist at San Quentin? Is it expanding it to other, given that this is already happening?
I think it'd be good to look around. We're quite literally going to transform this space. There's 81,000 square feet that's going to be completely reimagined, which will allow us to 10x the scale of programs that exist and bring in programs that don't exist. New partnerships, new opportunities across the spectrum, be it traditional vocational programs, building on the work that's being done, novel strategies as it relates to what Chris and his team have done at Last Mile, the work that continues to need to be done on just more traditional educational opportunities. I want to significantly expand those. We still have a lot of substance abuse issues, which is galling beyond words within the bars, not just outside, and work in that space. All of those things are part and parcel. We look forward to using the resources, as long as the legislature formally approves them, to move forward with those designs and to continue the process through the advisory committee to explore other programmatic opportunities that will be incorporated in this larger design. And that's the purpose of the co-chairs and the purpose of the advisory committee that's being formalized today.
So we've heard about the $20 million for this facility. What are we potentially looking at to make this a systemic, this type of programming more widely available?
That's what the $20 million intends to seek. Oh, we have estimates. Everybody can have an estimate. It could be $1, it could be $1 billion, it could be 500 million. You fill in. I mean, I know everybody wants to rush to that. We have our own back of the envelope. I don't even want to offer it because it's not even as, I don't even say it's the back of a napkin. It's not even an envelope. So that's what the $20 million seeks to understand.
Hi, Governor. Nicole Nixon with Cap Radio News. You've talked about transforming death row. Wondering if you have more specifics about a timeline for transferring those inmates, where they would go. Every
individual, sentences are not being changed. I want to make that crystal clear. Every individual has a customized assessment and plan. That has been the case for the 101 individuals that have moved off condemned row in the last year and a half. We've gone through a public process to get public feedback. We just exhausted that, I think, a week or so ago. We will take that feedback and we will incorporate it into the next iteration for the 546 remaining condemned inmates here at Quentin. They will be brought general population throughout the system and again assessed on a risk basis, individual by individual, over the course of the next 18 to 20 months. The goal that we've established internally, give us a little flexibility in this space, is by the end of 2024.
You said they would be put in the general prison population?
That's what we have already done with over 100 prisoners so far.
One more follow-up question. You talked about turning this area into an honor yard. What is an honor yard?
Well, these guys can tell you better than I can. I think someone who's been on the damn honor yard should come on up and explain it, because you don't need a politician telling you what an honor yard is.
Yeah, sure. Just real briefly, what it means is basically you've probably been without any rules violations for a certain amount of time, and there's a certain amount of programming that is offered and special opportunities, sometimes even extra little privileges, maybe a little more canteen extra packages. But for the most part, I will say like an honor yard is one of those places where everyone has the mindset of wanting to do better, be better, program, get some healing in, and hopefully get home.
Hi, Governor. Brooks Jerose, KTVU. I'm curious, how will you measure success, and how quickly do you hope to see it?
Oh, that's the right question. And look, at the end of the day, it's all about public safety. That's why these systems were designed in 1852, this institution, at the end of the day. And so we want to see these recidivism rates flip on their head. I mean, that's what you've seen in other successful models. They've taken 70% recidivism rates and they've turned them on their head. Norway's down to 20% or so. Again, I know people have their own points of view about Norway. I think they have as many prison cells as we have prisoners here at San Quentin alone in their entire country. So one has to be mindful of that. That said, public safety is the determinative factor of assessing success or failure. And that is determined on the basis of people's willingness and commitment to change themselves, to change their attitudes, to become positive contributory citizens when they're back in community. We need to help support people along that path, mindful that they're coming out regardless. And we will determine on the basis of our reentry efforts and the progress in terms of our longitudinal data that will be collected as part of this innovative model, the effectiveness of this program, make the determination whether or not to continue to scale it to other institutions.
Thank you.
Hello, Governor. Jim Carlton with the Wall Street Journal. On the issue of cost, we're standing on some of the most valuable land in California right here, Marin County. Did you consider maybe converting this to private land at some point and doing this facility in a cheaper location? Or why here?
Yeah, I mean, it's the right question, and I'm going to be as candid as I possibly can. Yes, we consider that, but not for very long. And here's the why. Proximity to support community. The opportunity for this institution to be a model that impacts all the other institutions is unique and distinctive at this location in particular. Well-established relationships with CBOs, reentry programs, and volunteer networks. Proximity to one of the most dynamic regions and creative regions in the world, the San Francisco Bay Area. For those reasons, had we shut it down, we felt we would fall backwards in terms of being able to build something else back up. There are 1,000+ prisoners already at this facility actively engaged in their own rehabilitation. What a baseline to start to build off of. To have disrupted that, I think would have created more problems and set actually the cause back. So for us, the dollars and cents of this are about a longer-term strategy to significantly reduce taxpayers' burden and costs in terms of proving a model and program of rehabilitation that can be an international model.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Hi, Governor. Daniela Pardo with Spectrum News, and I'm the last question. You mentioned multiple times
you kicked everyone out, did you? Yeah.
You mentioned multiple times you're not naive to how difficult this will be. So what do you think will be the #1 challenge to get this all done?
Fires, droughts, social unrest, pandemics. Ron DeSantis, did I say Ron DeSantis? Let me start it. There's no substitute for leadership. And I say it all the time, the difference between success and failure in life in every way, shape, or form is the difference between the distinction of being interested in something or being committed. Interested people find excuses. Committed people find ways of getting things done. It's their level of commitment. Are they just here because I made them come? They're here just doing their time, their version of time. How committed are we? This was I mean this, I thought about this 4 years ago, and all those things got in the way. We literally were thinking about this a few years back when Phil Ting and I were having those conversations about what he was hoping to pursue with his colleagues and Senator McGuire. I mean, these are next level leaders here in terms of their vision. We started having these creative conversations, and life got in the way. And here we are. And so I realized, and this is just my first few weeks, I mean, it's month 2 or 3 of my second term, we got to go now. When I wait till the last year or so, not going to happen. We need to institutionalize this so whoever comes behind us wants to keep this thing going. And so we have a lot of work to do. That's why I put this very uncomfortable 2025. None of these folks are happy with me saying 2025. In fact, my staff, even this morning, was debating with me, do not say 2025. 2025. Either have a date with destiny. When goals are nothing more than dreams with deadlines, we got to have a deadline to really initiate and move and move. And so that's going to create some energy. Some, Glenn's looking at me like, hold on, buddy. But we have the spirit of cooperation. And again, none of us have a fixed mindset. And so that's the thinking.
Thanks, Governor.
I appreciate the question. Look, I'm sorry, these poor folks have been standing for an hour behind me, but none of this is possible without them. And so thank you for your vision, your wisdom. Thank you for your faith and devotion to these folks who are on the inside. Thank you to our department heads, and thank you all very much for taking the time to be here. Thank you, guys.